you've written a lot of articles and books, book chapters on qualitative research as experimentation. And could you share with us how you encountered this idea?
Yeah, I'm quite sure that I actually created a kind of like illustration as an answer to these questions because I work through oftentimes when I experiment multiple modes of inquiry and processing. So to answer your question, I think the experimentation just happened. It started from these very creative moments. It's actually started much of that started in the classroom when I was interacting with students and we were learning about data and data analysis and so on in qualitative research. We did events and activities that prompt the experimentation. So that's where it's, and I have always been somebody who likes to experiment with things, but in context of qualitative inquiry, it really started accidentally in the classroom.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's interesting. Accidentally in the classroom, but at the same time, it's something that you encounter in some within a theory that you studied also.
Yeah, I think the actual kind of experimental force started from the practice, but then it was supplemented with the material and knowledge and readings. So if you think about how my experimental work has grown, it has started from these really practical moments of doing, and then I have been layering on top of that theory and conceptualization to make it more suitable for my inquiry processes or for my research questions or my study.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and I'm interested in this now in these notes, in this piece of art that I can see here. Just can you say something more about this?
Yeah, so I'm answering the different questions in the different parts of the map, if you will. And so I started processing the answers in part of this piece, and then I moved to the different spaces, and I also thought with images things that were helping me to think through the answers to these interview questions. And there is, for example, there is many is written here in the kind of like a background that shapes all my experimental work. And then different kind of textual representations that also reflect the way that every time I'm approaching a new question, new research question, a new research project, something different is born. And this is the kind of example of that as well.
And what about this flower? Who can you say something about this?
The flower is actually a iteration from my calendar. So it talks about, or it makes me think about how experimentation is related to time and space, and it relates to the everyday routines, but at the same time it is connected to the scholarship and the creative work that I do.
Mm-hmm. Can I take a picture at the end of this?
Yeah.
So at the end of the interview, so perhaps I can also present to the to our audience. Okay, and can you give me some example of research as experimentation that is present in your research or in the research that you did, or actually the research you are involved with now, but also you were involved with?
Yeah, I want to maybe talk about the data project. So the data project was one of the projects where the experimentation really started to bubble. and create spaces to think differently. And here is the data project described in my map a little bit. So there were different pieces to it. There was the actual experimentation, eating data, washing data, and trying to conceptually as well as practically move to the disorienting places. So experimentation, it's really important for me at least that I move to these disorienting places which enable me then to think and do differently. So data projects started as an experimentation, and then kind of fed into the different forms of experimentation. And Baudelaire's work about vital illusions and copies without original and so on prompt me theoretically to think about data as always multiplying body in some ways. There were data in different formats. The slowness also came, the experimentations with slowness came with the data project. And also living. Like the data project was one of the first projects where I got really close to, and my students and collaborators, really close to everydayness of our world. And since then, it has built out to many other projects.
Now, one more thing, really. It's what is your advice, that your suggestion that you want to give to a new scholar, a young researcher that want to do a research and experimentation? How can she plan or unplan her research?
Well, I have a little thing here to answer that. It starts with the living, the connection between life and inquiry. I think that that is a really fruitful, productive space. Then I think one thing you the scholars might consider is the sensibilities of observation, especially observing or noticing, wondering about even mundane things that help you then to break down complex research problems and kind of live through the different elements of that. Then sensing goes to that as well. The sensing and being available for effect, to be available to be impacted by the effect and the sensibilities and senses of the space. Losing oneself is a really interesting element of experimentation for me, because we come to, as scholars, we come to the experimentation with certain assumptions about ourselves, what we can do, what we cannot do, etc. And I think losing those preconceived ideas about self and my capacity to do certain things is essential, because you really need to break boundaries and also experiment with things that are less comfortable for you. And in those uncomfortable spaces, you are really moving beyond the normative knowledges and experiences. So that's important. Read, do more, be together, multiply, break boundaries. And the last thing that I have here is love and care. So I think experimentation requires such a safe space. So there has to be care and love for the community and people that you're working with in order to create the space where you can and feel good about experimenting.
So thank you very much for these
You're welcome.
inspiring ideas for our experimentation, and I invite the listener and the audience to get inspired by your thought. Thank you very much.